This is Robert Murdelanchi, the MindShare Learning Report, Canada's learning and technology e-magazine, and welcome to This Week in Canadian EdTech, very special MindShare TV podcast edition. I'm honored to have join us for a MindShare Learning Moment Rahmatullah Arman, who is the president and founder of Teach for Afghanistan. We're honored to have him in country and happens to be keynoting at our 13th Canadian EdTech Leadership Summit, October 19th and 20th. He'll be talking about sustaining learning in a crisis, not only with a pandemic, but also in a war-torn country and what that looks like. Um, Armand, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited for this and very much looking forward to it.
Well, it's very fortuitous to have you with us for a period of time and have the opportunity to share and inspire and learn about, what inspired you to launch Teach for Afghanistan. But first, tell me about your learning journey and your passion. You have an MBA and you did some other studies while you were in Afghanistan.
Yeah, thank you very much. So obviously, life started back all in Afghanistan where we were struggling to get an education for school. My parents did a great, wonderful job over there to educate us and my sisters and over family. And when I say that, obviously, that may look very normal to so many other of the people around the world, like just getting a school education. But back at my home in Afghanistan, that's one of the hardest things you can get. I mean, as of now, when you look at the portion of the people who are fortunate to get an education, there are very few. So for the parents who are still trying to get a good education to children, that's a great job that they're right now doing in that regard. So for myself, I completed my school education in Kabul itself, and then after that, I went for my bachelor education to India. I did bachelor in arts and political science and economy, and then after that, I did my MBA. That was in international human resource management.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was that like all those journey, and that's like learning journey started from there, and then obviously
Talk to me about the inspiration of your charity. This journey in Afghanistan, it's been ongoing for many, many years. The crisis beyond the pandemic, the war, has been part of your almost entire life.
yeah, actually, the how did we like start to teach for Vanessa and all those obviously based on what I had myself personally experienced, the challenges, the hurdles in Afghanistan inside the schools itself, like all those huge challenges that you would face inside the classrooms, be it school lack of school premises, shortage of teachers, the quality of education, and above that, all the security challenges, the school closures, and all these different regimes coming and going, and all the wars, continuous wars happening in Afghanistan. So I was witnessing that as a child. So I always dreamed of a better classroom, a better education. That's something that I myself I couldn't have access to. I remember when I first learned about this overall model that it was in India. At that moment, I was having a very good teachers, some very those teachers who were really helping me out, and then encouraging me every day and to be better and better every day to in my studies and in education and all. I remember going with a colleague to teach for India. There were some classrooms over there to help some of their fellows, volunteering over there. It was that time when I was sitting in that classroom, when I was looking at that teacher teaching with that patient, paying attention to each and every student and trying their best to help out each children learn. They're all with different qualities, different capacity, different thinking, different mindsets, but trying to help all of them at that, giving importance to all of them. I kind of like had that feeling at that moment that I'm to be a kid again, to have such a classroom and all those. That's when I kind of like dreamed about like going back to my country, starting something similar, helping out my people with Teach for Afghanistan, where I can help Afghanistan by Afghans themselves. And so my people would not have same experience like me. Our children would have a different classroom with a better teacher, with a better education. So that could lead to a better future, a better career for them. So that's how that kind of thing started. And we registered Teach for Afghanistan in 2012. And since then until now, that all the journey that we have been continuing those was the inspiration and the learning. Yeah.
How many students have you impacted over the years? That must be quite rewarding for you.
Yeah, indeed. I think that's also like irrelevant because of the lack of the schools, school premise, and all this. So you'll always find the schools filled with students. So many students in one classroom itself. I think there is no much like looking at the quality like the teacher per student ratio that has to be around 30 to 35 to 40. When in Afghanistan, you'll always find 65 to 75 to 80 students per one teacher. So, in that regard, for all these teachers that we have trained, we have recruited, and we have placed them inside the schools, so it has been above 100,000 children that have been impacted through our programs. And fortunately, above 75% of them have been girls who have been the victim for all these wars, and they have beared all these most of these challenges. So, Teacher of Afghanistan has paid a very huge focus on that section, and that's how we have been able to impact majority of girls, and that's like around 100,000 children that we have been able to impact, and we are continuing to have that impact in the currently as well in the years as well.
Now, there's another famous Afghani, Malala, that you have collaborated with, and you are a sought after speaker as well. You were supposed to go actually to the United Nations for their education summit to speak. Unfortunately, you had issues with getting your visa, perhaps.
Yeah, actually applied late, and then obviously there's a timeline that you will have to do. So I was applied here in Toronto in Canada, but I think that took a bit of time in that. So missed that opportunity. But yeah, one thing I loved about because of our colleagues over there, Mulala Yousafzai and the other champions from Afghanistan, several other champions from our very good friends who are also education right activists, women rights, girls rights activists. They have raised their voice over there. They have shared what we need for a better education in Afghanistan for the children of Afghanistan. So they have contributed to that. And I myself, if not being able to, then obviously, but still kind of contributing to those the impact and the voice that we need to be to raise. And most importantly, one of the biggest importance was that obviously we know the Ukraine crisis. There are a lot of other crises right now happening in the world, but
Right.
Afghanistan needs the utmost attention right now. So the presence in the current UN agency, UN session was about having that voice and not letting the world forget about Afghanistan, continuing to help its people to have access to a better education, a better life, especially the women and girls in Afghanistan. That was
And thank you for that. And you continue to operate your charity, and you have it's sizable. And how can people help? How can we help you financially or with resources? Is there an opportunity for us to contribute?
Thank you very much. So, Teacher of Honors, and obviously, we have continued our work despite the collapse of the government and all the things, challenges happening to Afghanistan, because we had remained committed to our people and the people. There were a lot of organizations, nation to nation, who left Afghanistan. But we, as Afghan organization, local organization, non-political, non-governmental organization, non-for-profit, we remained committed because we had some really good relationship within the communities, with the students, with the parents, and all. We knew the challenges that children are facing, people are facing. So at such a situation, the need was high. So we wanted to contribute to that. So that was one of the biggest reasons we remain. We have remained active right now. We have our colleagues back in Afghanistan. They're working. We have officers. We have fellows, teachers, staff. They're all contributing every day to build a better education for the children of Afghanistan. So that's the only thing we can think right now. Like you can see, 20 years of war, of U.S. war in Afghanistan, all the billions of and trillions of dollars spent in Afghanistan. But obviously, majority of those spending was on war materials and the things, but very few on education. So, but we feel we know the power of education, the difference that it can make. That's why we are contributing. And thank you for asking about that. I would say there are different ways you can support our cause and our organization. That could be financially by donating to the organization, to the work that we are doing back in Afghanistan, to contributing in our learning, sharing learning, through connections, through sharing more about Teach for Afghanistan, the work we are doing. And most importantly, I would have to mention not forgetting about Afghanistan, always trying to like listening to the voice of Afghans and trying to help the people back in Afghanistan, the children, the people who right now need utmost attention. Like any Ukrainian children, like any other people in the world, we are also at the highest need and challenges right now facing. So the world needs to listen and needs to continue contributing and supporting our people. Maybe it could be through a Facebook or sharing about us, about our work,
Right.
the people of Afghanistan, the impact that we are making, or like at least like calling about on UN UN leaders, the world leaders, to pay attention, support the people, and all those. And that all will very much help.
Thank you for that. How important is being an activist for our youth and experiencing that and finding a passion and something you really believe in, like your Teach for Afghanistan charity?
Thank you. I'd say it's very important right now itself, like for Afghan youth activists, for us itself, and all of like it's very important, especially at this moment when our country needs as the most. The challenges are huge, but there are very few people really asking for solutions. There are a lot of people sharing about challenges, problems, but very few coming up with solutions, with plans that could be helpful for the people, that could change their life, and not just raising the challenges and the questions and the
And
problems.
speaking of challenges and solutions, you create curriculum to support kids and help them stay safe as one of the areas of focus.
Yeah, that's we call it easy chapters. That's self-learning instructional materials we provide them, and it's all prepared by fellows, by teachers. Then they kind of like print it out inside our office, and then they distribute it to the students. That was one of the solutions we came up because of the school closures during the COVID, when children were unable to come out. So to avoid the learning loss, we kind of like moved ahead with this way. That was because in Afghanistan there is a very few people who have access to electricity, to internet, to tablets, and to all those smartphones and all those. So they were unable to continue learning online or virtual learning and all those. That wasn't an option for Afghan children. So for us to be able to ensure that we reach the children, so that was one of the best ways we could reach 100% all of the children we were in our schools, to help them continue learning. So they would have these chapters, they would learn it, and then every 2 weeks the teachers would go for a follow-up, for questions, for checking these homeworks and all those, for monthly tests, bi-weekly tests and all those. And that really helped us, like kind of like for Afghan children having not having access to all these other resources, to
It,
still
it,
continue learning and avoid learning loss.
Thank you for that. It really speaks to the importance of staying agile in your delivery of learning because things change. You don't always have control of all the variables, and you did what you needed to do to get materials, resources in the hands of kids.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that was a learning for us as well. Like always, I remember my conversation with so many of my friends from other countries, leaders from other countries. Like the changes that like the COVID itself proves that like anything can happen at any time. So it's not the world has become very much unpredictable, and we cannot really think about what today we think will remain may change tomorrow or the day after that or the next year or the next 5 years. So we need to be prepared for that. We need to really come up with solutions for those challenges or problems, that the things that are happening, the change that is happening, learning from that and kind of like coming up with a better solution that would work for differently for the different context. So
Talk
that
to me about the well being of kids and how you've addressed that because when you fear for your life and lack stability, it's kind of hard to focus on learning, isn't it?
it is indeed, and it has been like for us. I remember like since all these last 4 decades of war, so we had also have the same experience and all those. So the children right now, like when they're coming to the schools, they have experienced all sort of trauma that we can name. So when we go to the list, and maybe we could tick mark all of those lists itself, like all sort of traumas and challenges that they are facing
Right.
when they go to the classrooms. Obviously these classrooms have been attacked, the schools have been attacked, they are having incidents that where assets have been thrown into their faces, bombs have been installed, mines have been installed in their ways to go to schools. So all these attacks and challenges that children facing, the war, the problem, their
Yeah.
relatives getting killed, their families members, brothers, sisters, and all those, there's co-students and all those, then obviously for them to remain at classroom and then be able to learn. That's very much challenging, but we
But
have.
it's an escape. It's a distraction for them, right?
It is very much a huge distraction, but for us it's
Yeah.
more like our attention is like make
Yeah.
classrooms very much a learning environment, fun learning environment,
Right.
because we are working with the children, so the learning itself is very much different than what previously we used to learn inside of a classroom. Like a teacher would stand with a book, they would teach to us, but now it's more like with fun activities, with through games, teaching through such with such a passion, so many different teaching methods that
More experiential
more
project based.
engaging and more
Yeah.
encouraging.
Collaborative.
Yeah, cooperative. And most
Yeah.
importantly, one of the sessions that we they all have is like creating hope, sharing stories of hope, that
Yeah.
still hope and all those.
Well, you hit on something that I was going to ask you. It's a good segue to the question around hope and what gives you hope for the future.
Let's say our people never giving up. That's the biggest hope that we all always have. So in Afghanistan, this is not just the recent challenge that we are facing. We are facing these challenges since last 50 years, 40 years, and all sort of problems we have faced: bombs,
Right.
killings, changing of the governments within 1 days or 2 days, within 3 weeks. We have seen different governments and all those sort of challenges. What have given me hope is that never giving up. People, the people who are still continuing to bring change. Again, Afghanistan itself, we all like. You would find a lot of people who would still continue work, continue remain in the country, continue to contribute and change the society. Other not giving up. It would like this. The biggest example, the best example I can share is like when you go to the classrooms, you will see there will be no chairs, no desk, no board, nothing at all. Even they will not have a surrounding wall or shelter. They will be sitting in a desert, but still their families would have, they would send them to learn so that they could have a better future than what they would have. So that never giving up. You would see like in Afghanistan, there were live examples. There would be a bombing inside the school, children would be killed. Just 2 or 3 days after that, the children would all return. They would go to the school.
Incredible.
That hopeful, the universities and all those. So that gives me a hope that it's never ending. Also, the experience that we have all got, like never giving up, moving ahead, and there will be inshallah soon as a better change if we all kind of contribute from where
Right.
we are, like that. Maybe slow, but it could be steady and continue.
Well, it makes you appreciate, how fortunate we are in this continent in our country for what we have, and to not take it for granted, and to do our part to support, you know, your charity, Teach for Afghanistan, and helping kids continue to learn and sustain learning in a crisis and beyond. And I'm grateful of your time today, Armatullah, and look forward to your keynote in Montreal this coming October 19th and 20th. You'll be speaking on the 20th, and to share more stories about dealing with adversity and overcoming a crisis. And you will no doubt be as inspiring as you've been today.
Thank you very much. I'll be very much looking forward to that. I'm very much excited for that and very much looking forward to it. And thank you very much for having me. And I love this conversation and sharing. Would
Yeah.
love to share more stories and all those. And obviously, very much in the conference itself.
Well, thank you again. That was Armatullah Arman, the founder and president of Teach for Afghanistan. My name is Robert Marlachi, the Mindshare Learning Report. Be sure to check out www.mindsharelearning.com to get your latest issue. And do plan to join us in Montreal on October 19th and 20th, where we will be exploring the state of EdTech in Canada and really driving innovation through evidence based research and what's working for kids to sustain learning in the 21st century. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.